LAProbate expert. And today's our Tuesday real estate investing zoom.com. We get together every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, and all those times in between, and talk about all things real estate investment, whether you're a brand new investor or a wholesaler or investor or a real estate agent. We're here to get together to talk about investing in property, real property across the United States. I'm in Los Angeles, California, but we have a platform that's national. And sometimes we talk about individual problems or issues, and sometimes we bring in professionals that I think can be an asset to your business if you're looking to grow it, you're looking to expand your investments. So I'm really privileged today to have a company that I actually have been looking at my own investment dollars. Full disclosure, we chased a property we didn't get yet, but we're looking to, but I definitely vetted them, and I've watched them for a while, and I'm really excited to bring them here to our call. We have Eric Winkler from renttoretirement.com. So Eric, thanks for being on the call today.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
So first off, just about yourself personally, how did you get into real estate investing? Where did you grow up, schooling, and how did you get into business?
Sure. It's kind of a twisted path, so you're going to have to bear with me. So basically, I'm originally from New Haven, Connecticut. That's where I was born and raised. And when I was 17, I wound up joining the military because I had no idea what I wanted to do. Once I got done with the military, I did 6 years in the Navy. Once I got out of there, I found myself, I still needed a job, right? So I was in the medical profession in the Navy, and it doesn't really translate into the real world. So I found myself in an odd situation, just having to look for a job. I got into sales first. That really got me to be more forward with people, more direct with people, and built my communication skills. And after that, I started realizing, I kind of wanted to own a business. What kind of business? One that made money. That I really didn't have a criteria. I started working with an accounting firm, believe it or not. And why? Well, because my logic was I could figure out what kind of companies were making money. And as I was helping, I started as a bookkeeper's assistant, just helping out with the taxes, reviewing tax returns, et cetera, and entering data. And when I started realizing, there's a lot of money in certain businesses and not so much in others. What I really came to like was, the business owners just didn't really have a core concept of how their financials worked and how taxes worked. Got into consulting with business owners. Then with the business owners, it kind of blossomed into real estate. And this all happened back in 2020. So for the last, 2000. So for the last 20 years, I've been working with investors pretty much exclusively. And what I've found is that, not just from the investing side of things, there's just a lot of information out there. There's a lot of good information, but there's also a lot of bad information and getting in the weeds with stuff. So I've been working with investors for the last 20 years, 8,000 plus investors. I've helped set up their portfolios, their profiles, help them expand, help them with taxes, help them with establishing additional properties. I recently transitioned to rent to retirement. That was this year, believe it or not. I've worked with other large national real estate companies prior to this. I picked rent to retirement because it's a smaller company, honestly. And I just like the owner's philosophy. I like that it's a little bit more than just, selling properties to people. It's more about, yes, we do sell properties. That's how we keep our doors open, full disclosure, obviously. But what it really comes down to is helping people make the right decisions. I work with a lot of novice investors, first-time investors, and, they don't know a whole lot about, the difference between Indiana and Ohio and what should I pick for my first property, and, helping guide them into their first, second, third, fifth property. That it's a really good feeling. We all win, and that's really the environment that I like operating in.
Is there a difference between Indiana and Ohio? I'm sorry, I shouldn't say
so much. Not so much. When you really get down to it, not too much.
Well, I've only lived in California and Florida, so we call it flyover country in the middle there, but it's probably disrespectful. So, I think, and in particular, of all the real estate investment you've worked in before, rent to retirement to me seems pretty focused in the turnkey rental space specifically, correct?
Yeah. So just to intro the rent to retirement concept, we are a turnkey provider. Now, there's lots of providers out there, and you're going to get lots of definitions of what turnkey actually means. To us, turnkey means that the properties that we sell have been fully renovated or newly built. They're leased, and there's a property manager in place. So for those of you keeping score at home, what's left for you as the investor to do nothing. That's really the point of turnkey. I mean, yeah, you do have to buy the property. I won't be doing that for you, but the rest of it is really put in place for you so that you're not having to source tenants, you're not having to source property management, or get into some of these markets and try to do a long distance rehab, especially if you've never done one before. All of that stuff is done for you.
What seemed to me one of the keys then would be the proper vetting of the company ahead of time. If I'm not going to be able to be involved in the process or not want to be involved in the process, I better upfront get everything set up and make sure I'm working with the right people, correct?
That's correct. And that's exactly what our model is based on. So as we get into different markets, we're in 10 different states right now. Anytime we get into a new market, the first thing that we do is we buy properties in that market. We set up property management teams and contractors that we can work with in that market, and then we vet them. So once we've worked with them, done some deals with them, and they're managing some of our properties, that's when we'll open up that marketplace to outside investors.
Got it. So currently, what markets do you invest property in?
So personally, or as a business?
As a business, as a company.
Okay, so as a business, Minnesota, Ohio, Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, Pennsylvania, and I'm missing one. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's one more.
Okay. So it sounds like the Big Ten plus Pennsylvania and Florida. That sounds like
Missouri. I don't know if I said Missouri. That's a big
Missouri. One. Okay, good. And what do you think is common about those markets that you guys are participating in versus other markets?
Sure. I mean, so for us, it's really, we focus on the cash flowing elements. Obviously there's cash flow and appreciation. I mean, there's many different reasons to get involved in real estate. With us, what we're looking at is cash flow, thus the name rent to retirement. What we're looking to do is replace that active income and have some cash flow in the retirement years. So we focus on cash flowing markets. Where are you going to find cash flowing markets? Typically what you're finding, and this is just a broad overstatement, of course, but typically what you're looking for is lower appreciation, right? So we don't want markets that are reversing or shrinking, but not double-digit appreciation. So when you look at Kansas City, Missouri, yes, it's a growing market. Yes, there's a strong tech presence there and medical presence, but over year, you're looking at 5 to 7% appreciation. The good news is, when you look at the rent increases in that market, it can keep pace with that. Thus, the rent increases are keeping pace with the appreciation, thus a cash flowing property. Whereas you get into some markets, Los Angeles, I mean, you have double digit appreciation. However, the rents can't typically keep up with that appreciation, and it's hard to find cash flowing deals.
Got it. The attraction for me personally is I have a full-time business, more than full-time. I'm exhausted and working so hard, but I have extra cash I want to invest. And so I know that my brother, for example, retired on rental real estate, but he had a little bit of a background in construction and kind of enjoyed checking on things and working with the rehabbers and workmen and such. Really, your program is designed for somebody who isn't going to have the time to personally get involved in the details of the property, correct? Is that that's the real benefit at the end of the day?
That's the biggest benefit. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, so I often get asked, who is our typical investor? There really isn't a typical investor. I would say that the common thread, though, is obviously an interest in real estate. Sometimes it's just a lack of knowledge. Other times it's a lack of time. Some people say they're going to do 1 or 2 with us and learn from us. And what they wind up doing is buying 5, 10, 15 because why reinvent the wheel is really what it comes down to. So there's many different ways to get into it and many different reasons why someone would use Turnkey.
Do you have a deal you could walk us through and give us maybe just not necessarily a representative sample, but give us an example of what you might work with?
As far as property or what? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not offering it for investment, just kind of show us kind of what the numbers look like. Do you have anything? I meant to maybe ask you to do it ahead of time. What's an investment? What's a down payment? What kind of return are you talking about?
Yeah. So I can speak to that. I mean, obviously, and anyone who's interested, I mean, you can look at all this information. It's public to you on our website, renttoretirement.com. Click on the inventory, click on all active inventory, and it'll pop up all of the information on all of the properties. But typically what you're finding is, what is a good subject sample? Most of our properties, we focus on A and B markets or A and B neighborhoods. Our price points are typically $100,000 to $200,000 for the most part on single family. We also do multifamily, new construction, some commercial. If you go back up, Bill, just a little bit more. There you go. If you hit that all active inventory, there you go. And then it'll give you a good, this is exactly what we have available today. And then each of these properties has its own little brochure as well, which is going to give you a breakdown of what's going on with that property. But to finish the thought process, A and B neighborhoods, $100,000 to $200,000 for the most part on single family. There's also multifamily, new construction, commercial as well. So you have those opportunities. As you already know, 10 different states, so you can expand your geography as well.
So I just picked one up here, property in Davenport, Iowa. I'm somewhat familiar with the process. I'm very familiar with the process. I watch your properties every day, to be honest. Can you kind of walk through like this as an example? Is this something that might be representative that you can share with us what this might look like?
Yeah, luckily enough, there's actually a duplex to show you. I mean, I always tell people multifamily, but Bill, if you've been watching the inventory, they don't pop up and they usually go away or very quickly. So I bet this property will be gone in the next couple of hours. Anyways, this is a typical offering. What you're looking at here is this is a duplex. We give you the neighborhood class. We break down the rent and square footage and all of that fun stuff. The next highlight would be the rehab status and the rental status. So you have an idea of what's going on there as well. So this property was rehabbed in the last 12 to 24 months. The half is rented. The other one has a potential tenant lined up. By the way, this will all be cleaned up for you before closing. One thing I always want to bring up in real estate investing, and anyone who's been investing already knows, I want to know everything about this property. Yeah, I mean, and I understand that. And you will prior to closing. It's just prior to putting in an offer, you may not have every single piece of information that you want. Because one of the things that I always caution people on is procrastination. So, I mean, if you're running your numbers, of course, do your due diligence, run your numbers. But if the numbers make sense to you, put an offer in. I mean, at the end of the day, you do have a contingency on inspection and appraisal. If the numbers aren't adding up for whatever reason, or, we don't get that tenant in place, or insurance comes back 3 times what you thought it was going to be, you're not going to be forced to close on this deal, but you want to be able to lock deals in. So I just wanted to get that out there. So if we keep scrolling down, you'll get whatever photos that we have of the interior. Sometimes it would be limited because you'll notice in our inventory that you'll have some properties actually have tenants in them. So you'll just have a photo of the outside. We're not going to go disturb the tenants 100 times. We're already going to do that through the sales process with inspections and appraisals. But then you just get a feel for what the inside looks like. Are these all the photos that we have? That's usually the next question I have. Typically, yes. If you're looking for more photos, again, through the due diligence process, you'll be receiving an inspection, appraisals. And, if it really comes down to it, and for whatever reason, you just need to see the layout or whatever, we'll have the property manager just do a video walkthrough, doing a FaceTime for you. Is that something that you can have prior to the offer? No, because there's literally thousands of you and one of them, they'd spend their whole day just touring the property with their phone, and that's just not going to work. We're trying to get some of our property managers to do videos and upload them to this. That's up and coming, so I can't promise that you'll have it on all of everything right now, but we're trying to encourage them, hey, the more information, the less questions, everybody's happier. Sure. If we keep scrolling down, then we really get into the nuts and bolts of what we're looking at here. So we give you the purchase price. Obviously, the all cash price is exactly the same thing. Down payments. This is always going to be based on conventional financing. So typically it's 20% for single family, 25% for duplex, triplex, quadplex. Once you get into 5 doors, you're in the commercial realm, and we do work with commercial lenders as well. So now you can see the down payment amount, closing costs and fees. Those are going to vary. So I would not use those numbers as gospel. This is why we always have our clients or our investors get a pre-approval first. You're going to want to talk to your lender, talk about the fees, talk about what their fees are made up of, because our 3,000 is based on this. So we budgeted $1,000 for the lender fees, $500 for the appraisal, and $1,500 for title. And you'll be close to that. I mean, I know in other states, closing costs can be much higher. I know people in New York can look at this and be like, there's no way you can close on any property for $3,000. Believe it or not, you can. But you're going to want to get those fees from your lender. So then you break it down to your total cash investment. Interest rate, we use 4%. You're going to use whatever you get, 4.5, 4.75, whatever. And then the calculator will break this down. By the way, this calculator is also on our website under tools, so you can plug in your own numbers and it'll update everything for you. Debt service monthly, that's simply your mortgage payment. Debt service yearly, that's what it adds up to over 12 months. The monthly rent, so $1,550 on this particular property. That would be for both halves. Annual property tax, $2,157. That's coming from the assessor site. So anytime that we have a property tax in there, we're getting it from the assessor site. This is not typically an estimation, so you have the real numbers. Utilities are surprising to me to be 0 on a duplex. Typically, there are utilities. That means we have split meters here, which is fantastic. Sometimes you'll get into a duplex that gets a single family that gets converted into duplexes. They only have 1 meter, so sometimes you can't split. Some jurisdictions won't allow you to charge the tenants the utilities either. So like in Cleveland, that's a thing. You have to pick up at least the water. So Iowa, not a thing. You can have the tenants paying their own utilities, which is cool. Other operating expenses, this is typically where we'll put like snow removal, landscaping, etc. So as the example is 0, that means it's the tenant's responsibility.
What's snow removal?
Yeah. Oh yeah, snow removal. Yeah. There's some of these places. Annual insurance premium, $1,075. That's based on a current quote. And we also have insurance providers that we can turn you on to so that you can match those quotes. Then you get into our calculations, vacancy, maintenance, and property management. Let's talk about those. The thing I always get beat up with on every day is vacancy rate and maintenance rate seems low. The vacancy rate is low. I would agree with you. So 3% is low. Where do we come up with that number? So as a company, we decided to use 3% because it's based on a portfolio of properties. Our 3% comes from over the last 10 years, 3,000 plus properties that have been sold. We know that our average tenant stay is 3.5 to 4 years. And we also know that our property management companies can get somebody in 18 to 21 days. So if you do the math on that, it's actually less than 3%. Now, if I'm a first-time investor and this is my only property, should I budget 3%? Is that going to be a good number? I'd probably kick it up a little bit just so you had a better number. 8% would mean 1 vacancy per year, which is not good. I mean, you're not going to cash flow with 1 vacancy every single year. But I would kick it up a little bit so you had a higher budget number and you have more money in your account for the what ifs that arise. Maintenance rate of 3%. I agree with that for the first year. So if you remember, these properties are receiving a recent renovation. In addition to that, you're going to be ordering an inspection. So when that inspection report comes back, if there's anything that needs to be repaired, replaced, fixed, etc., that's going to be dealt with prior to closing. In addition to that, we look at the large mechanicals. So specifically roof, HVAC, foundation, hot water tank, all of that has to have 7 to 10 years life left in it. Otherwise, those are going to be replaced as well. And all of this is at our expense. It's not changing your capital investment. So I do believe 3% is a good number. Yep, there's the worksheet so you can plug in your numbers. The 3% is a good number to start with. If you're going to hold on to this property for multiple years, personally, I would add a little bit each year, maybe 3 to 5% to 7%. But I'll also tell you that, and I don't know your audience, Bill, first-time investors, long-time investors are probably rolling their eyes. But, first-time investors, what I would tell you is these are not forever homes, right? So these are investment properties. Most of these properties, you're probably not going to hold on to for more than 6 to 8 years. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule, but it's definitely time to start evaluating your position in the property for a couple of different reasons. A, that rehab work is getting older. B, that property is getting older. C, the mechanicals are getting older. So if you recently had the roof replaced, some of your large ones, roof replaced, HVAC was replaced, and you've got a good solid tenant and you've had annual rent increases and it's cash flowing, you may not want to mess with this property. But if you've had turnover, the roof is coming due, in the next year or so, it may be time to unload this property and get into a fresher rehab. Property management, you're going to find that varies 8 to 10%. It just depends on the property manager we're using in that market. So this specific market is 10%. So the rest is just how everything calculates out. Excel does that for you. You've got your gross scheduled income. It subtracts the vacancy amount, which gives you your gross operating income. Then it subtracts everything out, the property management, property taxes, utilities, everything that you saw above, so that you have your total operating expenses. You subtract that from the gross operating income. So if we scroll down just a little bit more, there's your net operating income. Minus the mortgage, that's obviously the biggest expense that you have. So take the mortgage out and your annual cash flow on this property is $5,804. The monthly cash flow is $484. And then you see I call it the creative math below. I don't know if our owner loves it when I call it that, but it's somewhat creative. It's true, but the numbers that I personally look at is the cash on cash return is important. This is basically, how much money am I getting for how much money I spent? I mean, that's really the layman's terms of it. What you do is you take the annual cash flow and you divide it by your total cash outlay that you saw up above, and you're going to see that it's 14%, which is, in my opinion, pretty phenomenal on turnkey properties.
So just to stop there, what you're saying is the annual cash flow, the 5804.
Yep.
It's about 13.9%, almost 14% of your total investment of $41,000.
Correct. That's how it should kind of pan out. So if we take it here, let's take a calculator real quick. Make sure we got our math right. 5804. And what was the 5804 divided by 41,750? Yeah, 13.9%.
There you go.
So
if you like you put $41,000 in the bank. At the end of the first year, you still have your money in the bank, and you get back the 5804 in interest or dividends or whatever your appreciation is.
That's correct. So then when you look at the next line, this is where it starts getting creative, folks. So cash on cash return with depreciation. So depreciation, if you're not familiar with it, on your property, you can depreciate the value of your property. Basically, what you do is you take the value of the property and you divide it by 27.5. Whatever that number is times your tax rate. In this instance, we assume 30%. Then we add that to the annual cash flow to see what your cash on cash return looks like with that. Why do we put that in there? Because for a lot of these properties, what you're going to find is that the bulk, if not all of your income is going to be tax-free. And how does that happen? Well, because when you're taking the depreciation, depending upon, again, your tax rates and everything else, but most of the time you're going to find that your depreciation is higher than the income that you're showing on these properties. So you wind up with tax-free income. So that is a benefit to you.
So just to stop 1 second. So that's assuming somebody who has an alternative income source. You have a job, you have a business, you're paying taxes. This is the benefit against those taxes expressed in cash terms.
Yes and no. So there's cost segregation analysis where we could actually do that if you had a portfolio of properties. So if you can show losses on these properties, that would help you in W-2 scenarios. But with one property, you're probably not going to be able to pull that off. What this is more about is, so this $5,804 that you're taking in income, the bulk, if not all of that, is going to be written off in the depreciation expense. So it's not an additional expense you're going to have to take on your taxes.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. So again, this is saying of the money you're getting, a chunk of it is basically tax-free or tax-deferred because of depreciation.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
And then the cash on cash return with appreciation, we just keep compounding this, folks. So this appreciation, what we do for our purposes, we anticipate or we calculate 4% appreciation on the property. So whatever 4% of the gross value of the home is, we add that in as well, because again, that is an advantage. I mean, it's an asset that you own. It gained value over the year. You really didn't pay for it. You paid for 20% down plus your closing costs. So that is a gain for you as well. And then the cash on cash return with loan pay down, that's basically, it's taking all the numbers from above and adding also whatever the tenant paid down over the year. So basically however they lowered your mortgage payment over the year, that's a gain to you as well. Now, are you going to be able to put that in your bank? No. That's why the top two are really ones that you can put in your bank account. And then obviously we just projected out 10 years and you can see, if you were let this sit for 10 years, you'd have a 413 or whatever, 414% on cash return. But Guys, seriously, from my point of view and hopefully yours, the top two numbers are really the ones I look at. Cash on cash return. Everybody understands that. I like taking the depreciation into account as well, because especially if you're getting this as tax-free income, that's pretty fantastic.
Now, I think all that's great. I think anybody who's looked at investments have seen those kinds of numbers, though I do believe you guys make a very nice presentation on each property. In fact, I always recommend when people want to come on this call and present a property, it should look something like that. What do you ask me to write a check for, and what do I get back? And you guys, I think, do an outstanding job of presenting it. But that's not the reason why I invited you on or why I considered writing a check to invite you. It's more about who you are behind all that, right? So talk a little bit about, of course, I don't see any questions on this, but if you talk a little bit about your company, the thing that strikes me is that you've been in this for a while. There's a lot of new people in this business, and really how transparent you are, like who your people are, what you guys do. Tell me about the company and why somebody looking to make this kind of passive investment should trust Rent to Retirement versus other companies.
Sure. So with our company, I mean, anybody who's had a conversation with me would attest to this. Transparency. It's really about transparency. And with our company, it's not just about the real estate investment itself. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, we're really trying to help people out here. And because at the end of the day, I mean, not to sound crass, but seriously, whether you buy a property with me or not, isn't really going to make or break my day, my month, my year. But if you don't buy any properties from me ever and you don't do business with me ever again, that hurts. I want you to be a long-time client. I don't want you to buy one property. I want you to buy 10, 15 properties. And then I want you to tell your cousins, your nephews, your parents, hey, you need to have a conversation with these guys and here's what they do. My day is full of talking to investors. Some of it is from marketing. The bulk of it is actually from referrals and repeat clients. And that's who I'd rather be talking to anyways. Of course, we're always looking for new clients. I don't want you to take that the wrong way, but I want to talk to your referrals. I want to talk to people that you work with. I want to be a trusted source. And as far as, the way that we do things, everything is just total transparency. What I mean by that is, I feel like I make a joke sometimes. People ask me, what do you do for a living? I was like, I talk people out of doing deals half the day. That's what it feels like. No, you don't want to do this one. You want to do something more like this. No, you don't want to spend your money on that one. You want to spend your money on something like this. And why? Again, it just makes me feel better about life. Number one. Number two, that might sound corny to you, but honestly, I feel like the older that I get, the less time that I have, and my time is very valuable to me. And I know everybody's here's time is valuable as well. So I don't like wasting your time. I don't like wasting my time. I want you to be happy with what you're doing. I want you to look back at this and be like, yay, this was the only regret I have is not doing something like this sooner. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. The other part of it is, putting other pieces of the puzzle together. So especially for new investors, it can be daunting, and especially, if you get stuck in the internet, paralysis analysis is a thing that happens to a lot of investors. So we're here to cut through some of that stuff as well. And what I mean by that is over the last 10 years, we've built one heck of a network, if I say so myself, consisting of accountants, attorneys, financial planners, estate planners, lenders, insurance providers. So in essence, Rent to Retirement can be a one-stop shop. So when you have questions about your portfolio, what should I do next, et cetera, I do not know everything, but I do know how to get the answers to your questions. And I know who you need to talk to get them faster. By giving you better information early on or as you need it, I truly believe it's going to lead you to better decisions.
And I like that you guys really educate. That's where I try to come from also. Your YouTube channel, I just find really informative. You've really laid out your whole company, I think, top to bottom, what you do, how you do it, who the players are, what the pitfalls are, what to avoid. So again, that's why I got involved and literally made an offer on a property. I'm committed to a certain type. It hasn't come back on the market yet. But that duplex in Davenport looks pretty interesting. When we're done with the call, we're taking a look at that one.
Sure.
But I just think you guys are really an exceptional company in an industry with a wide variety of players, a lot of which are not legitimate. And so I think it's important who you do business with, and that's why I asked you to get on the call today. So for those of you on our call, here's a chance to talk to a guy who talks to investors all day long, brand new investors, kind of gets them started. This is an easy way to get into business and get some returns. You have some lower priced areas and some medium priced areas. If you have a question, if you're watching live, feel free to put in the chat if you're on YouTube or Facebook, and we'll pick up on it in the chat box as well. If you're on the call, Zoom call live, put it in the chat box or raise your hand. I'd love to get you involved, or just unmute yourself and ask a question. Does anybody have a question they want to ask Eric? Here's your chance. No? Crickets.
Blew them away. We gave them all the information they needed. That's perfect.
Well, you do give a lot of information. I mean, frankly, I know when I called you, the process is you sign up for a chat interview, and I don't know if you're the only one or you're the one that I got, but we set up an interview, and I had a chance to go on your website and watch your company YouTube channel. I know a lot about you before our phone call, to be honest.
That actually happens. That actually happens a lot. I mean, and anybody who's interested in our company, I mean, like I said, the website is a very good reference. We do have a YouTube channel there. I mean, there's, I don't know, hundreds of videos now, over 100. We're posting content constantly, so you can learn a lot about us before you even pick up the phone and talk to somebody. And our process is, we deal with a lot of new investors who don't know what they want, and that's perfectly fine. We're used to that. So as you're looking at that spreadsheet, maybe you really didn't follow everything that we were talking about, and that's fine too. We, as Bill mentioned, the whole process starts with an interview. Not like the scary type, but basically, you're interviewing us. Is this a good fit for you? It's an opportunity where you can talk to us and ask us questions about our company. We ask you questions about your company. And there's actually 3 different advisors with the company that do what I do. So it could be myself, but there's other advisors as well that you could work with.
Eric, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Your business model typically is, do you guys basically buy and flip? You improve the property, you get tenants in place at market rents, and you turn it in a year? Or do you guys tend to hold properties for a little bit and then, go through a disposition after like 5-7 years? Like what's your business model for the business?
Yeah. So for our business, the way we make money is by buying properties that are distressed, repairing them, and then flipping to investors like yourself, adding property management, adding tenant. That's how we make our money. We don't want to be in a property more than, I'd say 90 tops, 120 days. That's how we're making our money. But we also have our portfolio that we deal with as well. On the portfolio side of things, yeah, we're doing the same thing. We'll wind up rehabbing the property, and we hold on to them typically, I'd say 5 to 7 years. 5 to 7 years is really the end of life for the most of our properties. And at that time, we're typically doing 1031 exchanges.
Right. And then as far as expenses, like for that duplex that we just looked at, how do you guys show expenses, if there are any, if you're holding for 90 to 120 days? Like how do you put together realistic expenses for the property, or utilities, I should say?
Yeah, so I mean, the utilities would be based on history from property management. So if we're holding on to it for 90 to 120 days, we typically have a longer history on this property from the property management company. So we're just using historical data for that, for the utilities.
Got it. And what are I'm sure it says on your website, but what are the markets, the 10 markets you said you invest in again?
Sure. So let's see if I can get them right again. Minnesota, Ohio, Missouri, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Pennsylvania.
Where's Quad Cities?
So that's Iowa and Illinois. It's basically where Iowa and Illinois touch. They're separated by the Mississippi River. It's actually a pretty interesting market, especially for newer investors who are looking to spend less money. You can get into a property 100,000 or so in a straight up B market. What I like about it is just the area itself. So Quad Cities is specifically Moline, Illinois, Rock City, Illinois, Davenport, Iowa, and Bettendorf, Iowa. Those are the Quad Cities. That's the 4 cities. And the top employers there, number 1 is John Deere Tractors. Number 2 is the Quad Cities Arsenal. So you got a bunch of people who build tractors, and you got a bunch of people who work for an armory, basically build bombs for the U.S. military. So you can't get more blue collar than that, I would imagine. And most of the people who are living in these places work in those for those employers.
So if I wanted to buy these properties, you showed financing. I know the answer to this question because I did it myself. Do I get my own loan? Do you have lenders I have to use? Do you lend the money? How is the process of financing one?
And so we are not lenders. We do have a list of recommended lenders that we send to you. Can you go get your own lender? I mean, no one's going to stop you. It's just oftentimes we like to work with our own lenders, and I'll just be totally transparent as to why. Number one, they're licensed in all the states that we operate in. So you need one pre-approval. I don't need to know what city, what state, I don't need to know anything. All I need is a rough estimate on what you want to spend. Number two, they're real estate investors themselves, which that may not be too important to you today, but as you grow out your portfolio, I assure you're going to want to work with someone who's real estate investor friendly. And then number three, they offer competitive rates and fees. So you're going to find roughly the same thing pretty much everywhere you go. They're all competing for your business. Using outside lenders, it's not a no-go. I mean, I would want to have a conversation with them first. 9 times out of 10, what we find is that they're not licensed in the state that you were looking at properties. They got you qualified for FHA, which you're not going to be owner occupied. I mean, there's just all these little nuances that we want to be aware of, especially with first-time investors. Anyways, the first thing you want to do is have a pre-approval in place. Once you have a pre-approval, then we can start talking properties. In fact, if you already know what you want, fantastic. You know, you pick what you want. We get it under contract for you, contingent upon inspection and appraisal, of course, and we go through that process together. And if you don't know what you want, that's where it comes down to more of a strategy planning session where basically we sit down and go through the inventory. I mean, you have to have an opinion one way or another about the properties you've been looking at. There's things that you like or don't like. And, you know, it could be something as nuanced as I had a woman tell me once that I want a brick home. I grew up in a brick home. I only buy brick homes. Cool. I guess we're going with a brick home. So that was one of her qualifications. It doesn't really matter. There's no right or wrong answers, but I can help you dial it in just by asking you a bunch of questions on what you're looking for, what you see, and then we can, you know, come up with a game plan together, and I can give you some suggestions as to what properties to start looking at.
So not to hog it up here, I don't see any other questions I haven't got to yet. So another area that I think is really unique that you guys get involved with is your new build program, which I think is specifically in Florida, if I remember correctly, right?
Yep.
You want to talk a little bit about the new build program and how that's a little different than they're turnkey eventually, but they're a little different in the way that the financing works and such. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So very different. So, I mean, one of the things that we usually get asked about is, you know, the equity position. So a lot of folks out there are into, you know, finding a property that needs to be rehabilitated. They rehab the property, they refi the property, they use that equity to pick up more properties. They rent that one out, and it's called the BRRRR strategy. You know, it's a great strategy. One of the downsides of turnkey is, you know, when you buy a turnkey property, how much equity do you have in the property? None. I mean, your down payment, you bought it at market value. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to sacrifice something. And because you sacrifice the risk, the money, and the time to do the rehab, you're sacrificing the equity. So we were trying to come up with not so much a solution, but an answer to the BRRRR method. And this is what we came up with. New construction, specifically in Cape Coral, Florida. So Cape Coral, you know, in a nutshell, it's if you're not familiar, it's in Southwest Florida. If you look at a map and look at Fort Myers, if you look to the left or to the west, depending upon how directionally challenged you are, I am super directionally challenged. So look to the left on the map, you'll find Cape Coral. Yep, there's Fort Myers. Yep, there's Cape Coral down to the west. Yep. So anyways, what's going on with Cape Coral is it's just this vast land that is waiting to be developed, and it has been developed. And that's Lehigh Acres. Keep going to the left.
Lehigh Acres is where I offered the property and we didn't get it. So
yep. So Lehigh, yeah, it's a great market too. Lehigh Acres is another market that we're building, and a little different than Cape Coral. With Cape Coral, what we're doing is basically we're getting into a construction prior to construction. So it's a little bit more complicated than, you know, just getting a mortgage and buying a property, because the property doesn't exist yet. So what you're actually doing is you're funding the construction of these properties. The benefit to you is you're coming in at 275. So your purchase price is $275,000. They are currently appraising at $330,000. So you're starting with a good $50,000 to $60,000 equity in these properties. So you got to be thinking to yourself, well, why would you do that? I mean, if they're worth 330, why wouldn't you sell them for 330? Again, it comes down to you're funding the construction. Most people, when they talk about building a new house, they're used to coming with a down payment of, $5,000 or $10,000, whatever dollars to the builder. And then they just disappear for a while. When the builder is completed, or about 30 to 45 days from completion, that's when you go back with your lending or your cash or however you're planning on buying the property. Buy the property, you have a new house. Congratulations. With this, you're actually, and in that situation, by the way, the builder funded that construction, right? So they paid for the material, the labor, everything else. In this situation, you are going to fund the construction. So there's only a few ways to really do that. Number one, it's going to be using cash, right? So cash is always an answer. If you have $275,000 that you want to spend, this is a way to do it. Now, it's not going to be $275,000 up front. You're going to be on the builder's draw schedule. So first you would buy your land. That's going to run you roughly $30,000. Next, you are going to get into the down payment, which is 15%. Once the permits are ready, it's another 10%. Once the slab is poured, another 15%. So you get how this goes. The construction cycle is going to take anywhere from 8 to 10 months in Cape Coral right now. A lot of that is permitting, believe it or not. And at the end of the 10-month cycle, you'll have a property. You will have spent $275,000, and then you can refi and recapture your equity and deploy that into other scenarios. And that's basically what this sheet is showing you right now. If you refied into a 20% down situation, this is what everything was going, how it would play out for you. So that's option number one. Option two is we do have private money lenders that can fund the construction of your loan. Now, the good news is there's a funding option. The bad news is it's private money. Private money is obviously going to cost you more than your conventional rates. It is a short-term fix to the solution, obviously, of building the property. Basically, it's a one-year note. We know construction is taking 8 to 10 months. This is a one-year note. What's going to happen in this situation is you're going to be out of pocket, I'd say $80,000 to $85,000 to get the construction completed. That's going to consist of, $30,000 to buy your lot. You're also going to have to put 20% down on the build cost, which is going to run you another, $48,000. So you're already at $78,000. Then you have closing costs, and you also have interest payments that you're going to be making during construction. Once the construction is completed, the exit strategy is to get you with a conventional lender, refinance the property into an investment property, and recapture equity. Your recapture of equity is going to be roughly around, based on today's values, $26,000 to $30,000 that you're going to be able to take as cash and redeploy into other investments, which may not be back much in the California market, but in the turnkey markets in the Midwest, that's another property that you could pick up. So this is a way that you actually turn one property into two properties in 10 months in your portfolio.
Got it. Obviously, more complicated. You guys do have some YouTubes that go into that in detail. So it wasn't my goal necessarily to cover that in depth today, but more to introduce you to the concept and then share with you the place you get more information. And then also, you mentioned the tool for the calculator. I kind of jumped in that a little early, didn't mean to, but I just want to show rentoretirement.com/tools. There's the rental calculator you can download, and you end up with a spreadsheet that will, you can play with your own numbers and make adjustments as Eric was talking about it, make it work for you as well. So that's on the rentoretirement.com/tools website, and you get that tool as well. Okay, questions. I know we covered a lot here today. I love this topic. I really like the company. I've checked them out on Bigger Pockets. I've checked them out on YouTube. They have all their employees on the website. Most of these companies that you talk to, it's like they're the world's largest company, but there's nobody who works for them. You can't figure anything out about them. And what really attracted me was how transparent they are. So I just wanted to see, who's got a question, challenge, comment? Anybody here do any turnkey rentals in the past, have good experiences, bad experiences? None? Was this an interesting topic? No? Is the microphone working? Hello?
I did a really good job, Eric. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My mind is blown. I thought it was fantastic. Now,
Very good.
the key to these calls for me is always if I enjoyed this topic a lot. So maybe it's a little high level. So look, if this is an area to look to invest in, go back, watch this interview, go on YouTube and see their Rent to Retirement channel, or reach out to Eric and get well, thank you, Mr. Martinez. Reach out to Eric, and if you're interested, he can walk you through the details, and he has other materials to give you as well. And then on the website is really everything you're going to want. It has the inventory of currently available properties, each one broken down in detail, all kinds of tools. So I think the challenge here is you guys are very transparent. You lay it all out very nicely. So I know I appreciate it. Last call. Any questions, challenges, comments? Any experience in the turnkey rental market for anybody here? No? Okay. Eric, I think you did a great job. You explained everything very nicely. You guys have really laid out so well on your website. I appreciate it. So thank you for being on the call today on behalf of everybody here on the call. We do this call every Tuesday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We also stream it live on YouTube, and then we record and send it out. Bill Gross EXP is the YouTube channel. On Thursdays, I do probateweekly.com. We'll do it this Thursday at 4 o'clock, Thursdays, and 7 p.m. Eastern time. So check it out if you have any questions. On social media, I'm Bill Gross EXP on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. So last time, Eric, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And you appreciate your discussions and contact info. Eric, do you give up personal info, or should they just go to the website? I know there's a contact me. That's how I got you. But what's the best way to reach you or get more information?
So if you want to contact the company, Rent to Retirement, just go to the website. There's a little link that says schedule a consultation, and that'll get you to the first available. If you want to talk to me specifically for whatever reason, it's really easy. It's Eric, ERIC, at rent2retirement.com. That's my personal email. I'm not that big and famous yet that I don't answer my own emails. So maybe one day, not today.
Well, let's make him that famous. So Eric at rent2retirement.com. And there's a number on the website as well. And if you go to the website, there's a schedule consultation. So you can either schedule that or reach out to Eric directly. So again, Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to be on the call today.
Hello?
Thank you for, hello?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Repeat the website one more time?
Sure, it's rent2retirement.com. renttoretirement.com. Rent2retirement.com.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tessa. Okay, everybody. Hey, thanks so much for having a powerful week this week. If I can help in any way, I'm Bill Gross EXP on social media, or reach out to me, phone call, text 310-210-0008. Make this your best day ever. Thanks so much.
Thank you.